Hi everyone, this is Krista Moore with K Coaching, and we're about to begin the Krista Moore Talk Show. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an explanation of where I am. This isn't the typical studio, as many of you that are regular watchers know that I'm not there today. I'm on my family vacation. We had it planned a couple of years ago. And then coincidentally, I had surgery 2 weeks ago, so that's what you see on my face if you are wondering what the heck that is and trying to zoom in. I had a basal cell cancer and it's under treatment. So the good news is I'm getting my stitches out tomorrow, and I am at the beach, which is kind of a weird place to be to relax for recovering from skin cancer, but I'm staying inside most of the time. So just wanted to explain that to you guys. Anyhow, I'm excited. The show must go on, and I am interested in you meeting my next guest. So I met Nicole Greer. We shared the stage together at the beginning of the year, and it was the first that I had met her, and I heard her speak on stage, and I just kind of fell in love with her attitude, her personality, but she just has a terrific way of expressing herself in terms of the vibrant leader and vibrant leadership, and that's the name of her business, and we're going to learn more about that today. So I'd like to welcome Nicole Greer. Are you there?
I'm right here. How are you, Krista?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Glad to be with you.
So let's go ahead and start out. I usually like to let my guests introduce themselves to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe what you're passionate about, some things about your business or personally. Just let us get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a little company. It's called Vibrant Coaching, and my company started about 10 years ago, and I do executive coaching, career coaching, and then I also work with teams and groups and do collaborative coaching. And I'm married. I've been married to David Greer for 26 years. I can't believe it. He's a saint. And then I also have two children. I have Katie, who is at High Point University, and I have Kent, who is an entrepreneur and is out in the work world. So success, I got one through college and who's paying his own rent. So I'm doing well. So that's just a little bit about me.
That's great. You know, it's funny how we can judge our own personal success when we know that our kids are happy. So when, you know, like you said, he's out on his own, it feels like success, but that's so true. So both of my daughters are kind of no longer on the payroll, so to speak, or, you know, they're all on their own, and it just feels like I did something right to know that I've sent them off into the world successfully.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about your company and what's some of the impact that you're having on businesses, and what are things that you're seeing as you're coaching leaders?
Well, I think the number one thing that I'm seeing with the leaders that I coach is it's kind of like, they're growing in terms of moving from, say, like a transactional leader, to what I would like to call a transcendent leader. So there's really 4 stages of leadership. And the first stage is, we've all worked for the bad boss. I'm sure you've had one of those, Krista, where you work for somebody and you're like, how did this person get this job? How did they get promoted, right? And so there's that level. And, then there's the next level of leadership, which is transactional. It's like, just do what I say and you'll get a paycheck at the end of the week. And then the third level of leadership is like transformational, where you really, truly, care about the people that work for you and you want to grow them and develop them. And then essentially we get to the fourth level, which is transcendent, which is, I am the kind of person that you want to work for. And I am the kind of person that, wants to mentor you and coach you and bring you up. And, not only am I concerned with the agenda that I have for the company and for my own career, but I'm truly concerned about the agenda you have for your career and where you want to go. So, I'm seeing people wanting to embrace that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I love the way that you describe those different levels, and I think we all know someone in one of those levels, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like it was more old school to be level 1 or level 2, maybe, where you're not really working on yourself, where leadership was more of a position. And I know that you believe that everyone's a leader and it's not about the position. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your kind of definition of leadership, or, why do you think that everybody's a leader?
Well, I think everybody is a leader because, the first person you have to manage or lead is yourself, right? So it's this idea that if I lead myself well, that's the first step. So I have to be conscious and I have to understand, through some self-assessment. I have to work on my habits. I have to think about the quality of my integrity. I got to have some goals and I got to watch my energy. And that's self-leadership. So that's the first step. Then the next step is that, then I might be given the responsibility to lead others. And at that point, I still have to keep self-managing, right? And at the same time, help this person I'm working with that's it's been entrusted to me. I help them, I mentor them, and I help them develop through that same kind of methodology, which is self-assessment, habits, integrity, next right steps, and energy.
Yeah, you use the term vibrant leadership and vibrant leaders. And I understand that term as it relates to your business title and also the type of leaders that you're trying to kind of transcend, right? Where did that come from? Tell us the story about the vibrant leadership and why do you use that term and what is that all about?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So I went down to Arizona, and when I went down to Arizona for my coach training, when I was down there, we learned all about how to be a coach. And one of the things about becoming a coach, which I'm sure you can totally relate to, is you have to do so much introspection and self-assessment. It actually makes you a better person. I mean, if you think you're going to coach somebody else, you better have your act together, right? So I spent a lot of time with a group of individuals going through my coaching program. And one of the things our master coach did at the end of the experience is that he said, if we asked each one of you to go out of the room and come back in the room, and we didn't know your name, but we knew about you, your behaviors and how you show up, what word would you label each other, right? And so we'd spent weeks and weeks together, practice coaching and doing all these kind of things. And so they did the exercise. I literally went out of the room and I came back in the room and they said, oh, well, Nicole is vibrant. And essentially what they were trying to say is that, there are two kinds of people, Krista. There's the kind of person that walks in the door and you think, oh, there she is. I'm so glad she's here because she's going to contribute. She's got good energy. Or there's the type of person that walks in the door and you think, oh no, they're going to be here. This person that brings this bad energy, bad attitude, and is somebody that's going to literally suck the energy out of the room. So, I think that's what we need in all of our leaders is this consciousness that, no matter what happens, you're going to make an impact. What our goal is to make that positive impact.
Yeah. And the key word is be vibrant, right?
That's
and
exactly
you use a methodology called SHINE that I want to make sure that we touch upon today. But before we go there, I'd like to talk a little bit about self-reflection for leaders.
Yeah.
It's something that in our coaching practice, we are, at the beginning of the coaching engagement, we really want them to get into a place where they can do some self-reflection so that they can understand what the perception is that maybe others have of them, or what do they need to work on intentionally during the coaching engagement. So what are some tools that you use, or what are ways that you help leaders and maybe you would recommend to leaders to do some self-reflection? What are some things that you do in your practice or that you would recommend to others?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing that, you and I have talked about quite often is this idea of journaling. I think journaling is so good, but unfortunately, when people hear the word journaling, there's this weird journaling phobia out there. But, we're not talking about writing, yeah, we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is like really just zeroing in on, like if I was going to look back through my day as a leader and my interactions with the people that I lead, what were they like? If I had to use some adjectives to describe that situation, did I leave the people that I work with, up the feeling scale or down the feeling scale? So I think journaling is a great, great way to do it. And then another tool that I have in my...
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's kind of interesting because you're saying every day reflect on your leadership behavior that day. And that will help you become more aware And I'm imagining that someone at the end of the day might be journaling and saying, oh my gosh, I hardly even talked to anybody today. Like I have nothing to write. Or,
Right.
you know, maybe I stayed in my office too long and I didn't really lead anything. So that's interesting, because I would imagine some things would come out of that would be maybe habits that could be changed.
Yeah, and then they bring the journal to the coaching engagement, to the session, and then you can talk through these things. Because people, we get our degrees in business, we get our MBA, we get all these different things, we go to seminars, but I think the one thing that's really missing with leaders is this ability to have really positive interpersonal relationships, one-on-one conversations where they're impactful and they're on purpose. I think a lot of our conversations are just about tactics, like get this done.
Intentional. Yeah. So there is a word that you use intentionally. If I recall, when you're in front of an audience and you're talking to a group, you ask this very powerful question to get them in that space. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I love this question. It's, what is it like to experience me? And
What
I
is
think
it like to experience me?
Yeah. So like, I call that turning the mirror inward. It's like, okay, what's it like to deal with her? What is that like? And I think that people need to get really, really close to what that is. And that, that journaling we were talking about totally will do that. And then I know both you and I use different assessments inside of our coaching practice. And that gives people a mirror. And then of course, coaching just in general, acts as a mirror to help you kind of figure out what it's like to experience me. Because if we're truthful with ourselves, we've got a personality, but we also have the quality of our character. And leaders have to be so tuned in to, the quality of our personality and the quality of our character. So that's really important.
Yeah. And I think the other method to use is 360s. And
Absolutely.
so 360s are pretty cool because they're going out to people that work for you and maybe peers or your boss or a subordinate, even family members, to get that perception of leadership. And sometimes it's hard to read, especially if it's anonymous. People will be even more honest, but this is the true view of what's happening.
Right. That's exactly right.
Are you going somewhere?
Yeah, I'll step out here for just a moment. Okay. All right. Can you see me still?
I can.
Okay. Awesome. Somebody came into the room that I didn't expect, and so I apologize.
Oh no, actually that was pretty cool. You just like walked out and carried the camera with you.
That's right. That's right.
No, that's awesome.
Okay.
So let me ask you another question about vibrant leadership. Because of the term, I know that you have a methodology that you use to get people to that vibrant level. And what are some of the characteristics that you would say are part of being a vibrant leader?
Well, again, like I said before, I think it is understanding your personality. That's job number one. And so, through different assessments and that kind of thing, you can kind of get a picture of who you are and how you show up. The second layer, I think, is then understanding that I have this hardcore wired personality, but I've got to work on character traits that help my personality, show up more favorable more often, right? So, while I have a certain personality, there are quirks and there are different learned behaviors that I've got to put in place. And so, for example, I'm an extrovert. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of words. I will talk a lot if you let me. So what is the character trait that I need that helps me become somebody who's easier to follow? Well, I'm going to need to learn the opposite, which is I need to learn to be patient. I need to listen. Sometimes I need to be calm, cool, collected. And so I think helping leaders really understand what their personality is, and then the learned behaviors, which I call habits, right, that we need to put in place to help us. So I think that's number one. Then the second thing that I often talk to people about is this idea of integrity. And Krista, I really think people are confused about integrity, because a lot of people think that integrity is like a solid thing in your life. But the reality is that integrity kind of comes and goes. with every word, every thought, everything that I do, I'm either going to be in or out of integrity with regard to that. So it's really important to understand, that it comes and goes. I think that's essential.
Yeah, so in and out of integrity, does that mean, I mean, because in my mind, I think that certain people have characteristics and they also have character. So either you are a natural, trusting, high integrity person, or you're not. Maybe I come from the school of it's part of your DNA and it's really hard to change. But you're saying that that's not the case, right? If you're intentional about what you can do in that area, you can change that character. I lost your audio.
Okay,
There you go.
so absolutely. So character is definitely a choice, right? And so the thing is that I think a lot of times people don't understand the choices that I make are going to have an impact on other people. And working with a coach can really help you to figure out how the different interactions that I have are going to impact other people. And so there's really 4 different levels of integrity that we can look at. So one is, do you care about humanity? Right? And so understanding that how I approach humanity is seriously important and that it matters. So for example, I was just coaching a group before I got on the show with you. And, oftentimes I'll have people just flat out say, I don't care what they think. And I'm thinking, well, you have to care what people think. You have to listen to people's opinions and you have to be someone who can give and receive feedback. Then the other part of integrity that I think is so important is this idea of courage, right? So sometimes we're going to have to be brave enough to do the right thing. We're going to have to stand up for our morals and for our principles. And so you might have to speak up and speak out, right? Then there's also this character trait or this piece of integrity that's called resilience. When you get knocked down, you got to get back up. And you've got to learn and build that muscle to fall down and get back up, to fail and try again. And then finally, there's the character trait or the integrity piece called wisdom. And this is the part where we were talking before the show, when we were warming up, was we were talking about the fact that, you have to be a lifelong learner. And you have to understand that what you learned, in this phase of your life may not apply now. So we've got to be someone who can learn. So there's really wisdom, resilience, courage, and humanity. And those are the 4 things that leaders need to work on to make sure that their integrity is intact.
Well, that was a wealth of knowledge and wisdom yourself and understanding. And you just rattled that off.
Yeah, I really believe it.
Exactly. I love it. Thanks for sharing. The one thing that I see often is there are plenty of leaders in very influential positions that either, I'm not saying they don't have integrity, but they're not conscientious about those different things that you just mentioned.
Right.
Or they never hire a coach, or they're not even reading the books, or listening to the podcast. We talked about continuous learning, to get better at what we do. And I'm wondering what advice you would have for maybe our audience who has a boss that might be that way, or for themselves. What can they do if they're not going to go out and spend the money or the time on self and personal development? Is there a few quick, easy things that they could do to start moving themselves forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the number one thing that people need to learn how to do is they need to learn to give feedback. And you and I, love to read and all that. And I bet you have this book on your shelf. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Do you have that on your bookshelf?
Yes, ma'am. Stephen Covey.
I knew you did. That's right, Stephen Covey. So, this book never goes out of style, so here's my suggestion. Yeah, you've got to read the book. It should be required reading for every person that gets hired onto your company or your organization. So in the book, Covey talks about that everybody has an emotional bank account, right? And so, if Krista and Nicole are working together and Krista is Nicole's leader, Nicole has to put deposits into Krista's account. Like, I need to get my work done on time for her. I need to turn it in on time. I need to show up on time. I need to, treasure her advice. I need to, think about the words I used with her. I have to treat her well. And then it's flipped the other way, right? So we give each other these deposits, okay? And if you give me enough deposits in my emotional bank account, then I'm going to allow you to make a withdrawal if I need to be corrected. So if I need coaching and counseling about something I'm doing, if your tendency has been to build me up and give me feedback, show me where I'm doing things right, invest, some time having a conversation with me and getting me where I need to go, I am going to receive your corrective feedback much more easy than if you just always told me all the things I did wrong. So the number one tool is to give people what I call a positive C3 as often as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for the reminder on that emotional bank account. That's something that we can really relate to.
Right.
And often when in a lot of the teaching that we have, we teach giving positive and constructive feedback and the proper way to do that, right? Instead of,
Yes.
there's a whole methodology behind that. And for those of you that are ID Growth members, you can go on the resources page in the membership site and see some articles on positive and constructive feedback, because there's an art to it almost in order to move, to make a difference, or to, I'll give you a quick example to the group. So let's say you are used to giving positive feedback, and after a sales call, you might high five your sales rep. Great job, you did awesome. And you might consider that as you're journaling. Yeah, I gave positive feedback to so-and-so today. But I would challenge your approach, and maybe there's a better way of doing it where tactically you might let them know what was great about that behavior and why you thought it was great, and what impact does it have on the company and them, because you want them to do it again the next time, the same thing. So let me give you another scenario. You might say, you did a really great job on that sales call. I saw you asking questions and listening and not talking over the customer, and then you reiterated back and gave them the right solution. And I just want you to know that if you keep that up, you're going to be able to close deals and sell a whole lot more, to your prospects. And then it's like, that's totally different than high five, you did a great job, right? So most of us are pretty good at giving negative feedback, but we slack off on the nice stuff. And sometimes it's hard to say thank you.
That's exactly right. So I could totally agree with what you're saying, because here's the thing, if you keep telling me great job, I may be misinformed about exactly what you're talking about. Like, because I could have done something that wasn't so hot today.
That's right.
And I'm thinking it was great. So being so specific is absolutely huge. Yeah. And I think people crave feedback.
Absolutely. And, some people might even know the book, The 5 Love Languages. And I like applying that to work and relationships at work. So you might have someone that is really, really needs affirmation to know that they are loved. And they might just have a high need for affirmation, and that's their love language. And I don't want to turn like the day-to-day work into something so personal, but I think if you're familiar with that book, you can also apply some of that, because you want to be able to be motivating to your employees and you want to inspire them, but you have to get to know them. As a leader, that's just part of your responsibility, understanding them. So I just wanted to say too, that your advice of feedback, if everyone leaves here today and is more intentional about the type and the way that they provide feedback, then they're well on a good course to being a more vibrant leader.
That's right. And the thing is that if you give positive feedback and lots of it, you're pouring out all of this great energy into people. And here's what I know. If you tell me I'm doing a good job, I'm going to go do more of it immediately. Yeah. Right? Because it felt good to receive it, and now I will pay it forward. And so the part about being a vibrant leader is to put out that positive energy and get people to do what you want them to do. Another thing that I think is so essential as far as being an effective leader and being a vibrant leader is to set clear expectations. And I got this quote from my master coach, and it's pure genius. And y'all might want to write this down out there. It is uncommunicated expectations are a premeditated opportunity to be disappointed. And I got told that. Oh, I do too. I mean, like it's on a sign in my office, right? Because, people can't read your mind. They don't know what you're thinking. Leaders will say, they probably say this to you, Krista, will say, why don't they just think the way I think? And I'm like, because you haven't had the conversation. You haven't set the expectation.
Yeah. Yep, that's something I think we all could work on. And I find that in my day-to-day, just busy, we have all these to-dos, but I'm not really clear on what I want the outcome to look like, or when I want the outcome to be on my desk. And that is disappointing, but it's the only reason that I would be disappointed is because I didn't do it right. I didn't lead that example right. Any final words you want to tell our audience today? I wanted you to say something about SHINE because I really like that methodology. We have about 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Just, I think it's important that, you have kind of like a framework. One of the things about me and I think this percentage is like 70%, correct me, Krista, if you've got better statistics, but around 70% of us are visual learners, and we need some kind of formula, something formulaic we can look at that helps us kind of check in with ourselves, make sure we're doing the right thing. So I alluded to it earlier, but my coaching methodology is called SHINE, be vibrant, but it's really simple. So, the first thing we need to do is the self-assessment. Turn the mirror inward. What is it like to experience me? Then once I get my head wrapped around what it is that it's like to experience me, then I want to start doing some habit work. So for example, like I said, in my own life, being somebody who has a lot of words, total extrovert, one of the habits I work on consistently is listening and pausing before I interrupt somebody. This is a lifelong thing, if you're wired like me, that I have to work on and practice. I have to make it habitual. Then we just talked about integrity, and that is the part where you're, thinking about humanity. You're trying to be wise, resilient, and courageous. And then, of course, goal setting, which you and I could have probably a 4-hour conversation on goal setting. But, you do need written down goals. I think the statistics on that is less than 10% of adults have written down goals. So one of the things I think is so imperative is to sit down, set some goals, check on them, have them written. And then, of course, energy. And I often teach my clients there are 6 kinds of energy that you can work on. So you can kind of do it just like if you were, playing a game. You're just like, I've got intellectual energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy, pressing up against my soul here. I've got physical energy, and then I've got social energy, and then there's the energy of money. And so these 6 energies are things that we need to check in with ourselves. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is my spirit like? How's my body feeling, right? Because we all know if we don't feel good in our body, we don't get much work done. And then how are my relationships, social energy? And then again, if your finances are messed up, everything's messed up. So you got to get your money under control. So that's kind of my methodology with working with anybody from life coaching to executive coaching. We check in on all those things. Yeah. That's my method.
Well, and I like when you can incorporate acronyms because then it just helps you kind of remember those different steps. So I appreciate that. Now, you have to write all this in a book, because you're just are this wealth of information. I'm sure you're working on that.
I am. It is getting done.
Great. And actually, on a side note for my audience, Race to Amazing will be published in August. We were going to do it in September. We decided to publish it in August so I could do a book signing at the Advantage Business Conference, which most of you will be at. So be sure to look for Race to Amazing coming out in August. Well, I want to say thank you, Nicole, for being with us, sharing your insights and your experience, and I appreciate you. And just stay in touch, and let's just say goodbye to our group. See you, Nicole.
Bye. Thank you.
So I want to share something that is some information on contacting Nicole. So if you are curious about her business or you want to find out more, Vibrant Coaching, here's her phone number, her email address, and I'm sure she'd welcome you to follow her socially, and you can continue to learn about Nicole. Just want to say a few words in closing. So make sure that you register for next month's show. I have a special guest, Cindy Bolka, and she's a friend of mine and also a life and wellness coach. And she is a master at putting together retreats across the world. And she's going to be talking to us about the full self and embodying our mind, our spirit, our heart, our soul. And I'm just looking forward to her as our guest. And it's a little bit of a twist from some of the things that we've talked about that were so pure business, but it's more about ourselves and what we can do to have great wellness within. Also, wanted to make you all aware that I have decided to do more public service announcements on skin cancer and skin cancer awareness. For those of you that are curious about this, you can go to the Krista Moore Show Facebook page and you can watch the public service announcement that I put out last week. You could also follow me or like me on my Facebook page, Krista Moore. And the campaign that I'm starting is called Where's Your Hat? And I'm going to be giving a different tip of the day involving skin cancer awareness, sun protection, myths, tips, and I'm going to have a different hat. I'm officially the hat lady. Once I realized that I needed to wear a hat to cover my nose, I realized I had 23 fashion hats and 36 baseball caps. So I am the hat lady. Now I get to wear them all. So you're going to see them in my public service announcements. It's nothing to play with. And I encourage all of you to get early detection. And also, summertime starts tomorrow. So wear your hat. Talk with you soon. Thanks.